But it's kind of in fact, I don't understand that. Maybe some psychology, I don't understand. But it's because there's a number of things going on. They're trying to make conversation, and they feel they have to make it relevant to something black. And then they don't have a sense of the size of the black population or something, and they think black people know each other. And probably you have gotten that in all situations, because they may see you as a minority. If you were in any situation with only a few black people, you must know that person in Denver or whatever it is. Or in an attempt, again, now this stuff is well-intentioned, and I'm not saying that necessarily it's vicious all the time, but it's a pressure on you. If someone comes up to you at a social function, a white person, they don't know what to say, and they start fidgeting, and they'll say something like, well, what do you think of O.J. Simpson? O.J. Simpson. Well, they're trying to make a connection, and everyone starts getting uncomfortable because they're trying to relate the black. All I am saying is that this is a pressure on you that, in fact, you kind of accept. You're used to it. You're used to being a minority in America. One of the problems with whites in their psychology, and why it's difficult for them sometimes to understand certain things, is that they don't know what it is to be a minority. And there's a certain psychology to being a minority person in a society, and the way you treat it, and the fact that the reference point, the vantage point, is always the white vantage point. See, you're used to being in a minority. That doesn't even make you anxious. There are a lot of white people, when they get in a minority situation, they come to a party and it's all black, they get nervous. They get very anxious. I get mail like that all the time from white people, that they get nervous. And so part of the fear of sitting at the table with all the black students is not they think the black students are going to kick them away from the table. They're not used to being in the minority, in charge, and it makes them anxious. You are used to it. All of you can go sit at a table of all whites, and it doesn't even make you anxious. That's like your role. But even if you put up a banner and say, we will treat you very nicely if you come sit at our table, a lot of the white people will be uncomfortable doing that. Not being the dominant, in a dominant cultural situation. And these are prototypes. This is true of other people, other cultures, and so on, but yet it's very, very, very true. And so it's hard then for them to put themselves in the place of someone in a minority position in the society, particularly a black minority position in the society. And with all the symbolism that goes with being black and so on. And so they have trouble understanding, genuine trouble understanding what's going on, how you perceive something. Sometimes so much so that the perceptions may be the opposite around certain issues and what's happening to you. And that's why you have to trust yourself. See, because you could be in a situation, someone can say something to you crude, you know? And you may get upset about it, and they'll say, the problem is not that they said something crude and rude and racist to you. The problem is that you are oversensitive. They will define it that way. And then it becomes your problem. And then you may go around thinking you are crazy when they are crazy.
Right.
You see what I mean? Now, this got a classic example of this historically was this situation in Louisiana. It's a classic situation. In 1851, all these slaves were running away from the plantation in this Louisiana plantation. This is a true story, I'm not making it up. And the plantation owner got very, very upset about why all the slaves were getting away and running away from this plantation. So he called in a Dr. Cartwright, who was a psychologist, also a physician, to come in and advise him. So Dr. Cartwright went in and conducted a study. And he interviewed all the slaves, the children, you know, everyone, the slave master. And he wrote this about 50-page paper. I got a copy of it in my It's published in the New Orleans Journal of Medicine. And after this weeks of research, he concluded that the slaves who were running away from the plantation were suffering from a mental disease that he called drapetomania, which means runaway mania. Now this is true. Now what? Think about that. The slaves were mentally diseased for running away from the plantation. And that mental health for them meant that they should want to stay on the plantation and be a slave. It was mental health for the slave. And they really had us in a box, right? Because if slaves believed that, these objective scientists have now said I'm suffering from mental illness, from running away from slavery. If they get into believing that, then they help each other stay on the plantation, preserve their mental health. Now you have to know that they believe that. A lot of the arguments they made for maintaining slavery and segregation was that it was mentally healthy for blacks. And that if they ended slavery, that blacks would start committing suicide. Because the suicide rate of blacks was so low. At least they said it was. Very low black suicide rate. And they said, how come the black suicide rate can be so low if they're not happy? So this is really a good situation for the slaves. See, because what Cartwright said in his paper was that they were developing this mental disease because the slave master didn't understand black people. He didn't understand that they had a child mentality and he didn't have enough fun and games for them on the plantation to keep them happy. And so they were going crazy, flipping out. He also said some of them had a mental disease which was manifested by belligerence and hostility. They also were mentally sick. There's nothing wrong with what they're doing, but think of the political impact of positions of that time. It said the status quo, that slavery was fine. He didn't question slavery. He questioned the people who deviated from the status quo of slavery and defined them as ill. This goes all the time in our culture. That the people who don't fit in will be defined as deviant and out. Not as being different, but as deviant, as they try to enforce certain kinds of norms on people. And it's also used as a form of and way of politically manipulating us psychologically. You ever wondered why one of the major stereotypes about blacks from the days of slavery is that they are lazy when they were doing all the work? How do you suppose that happened? How did that make any sense?
Sure do.
When blacks were working from sun up to sundown, that a major stereotype was that they're lazy. Now, whenever you see something like that doesn't make sense, then you have to start thinking, what is the psychological and political purpose of that? Why would it develop? If black people during slavery had got together and said, well, let us now define what our major personal problem is, they had come up with the fact that their major problem is that they're lazy? No. So when you hear that, then you know it's coming from the outside, and you have to look at a political term. But what are some of the possibilities? First of all, it's a form of manipulation. Because if you're a slave working for free, and they define your problem as being lazy, and they keep hammering away, you lazy, so and so, so, and you believe that mess, that is a deficiency in you, then you work hard. You produce more for free. They get more work out of it. So it's in their interest to use that as a weapon, a psychological weapon, to keep getting you to work as hard as possible. And then if you stop believing it yourself, you then work hard for them. That's what it's talking about. The other major possibility, and there are others, is that they are defining and misinterpreting behavior that they see.